Storm, a comedy game design podcast by two guys who know nothing about comedy nor game design. I'm Trevor Scott, and with me as always is Ben Slinger.
I am, and we also have a special guest this week. Welcome Jono Pech from the new Comedy Rewind podcast on Atebit, amongst other podcasts.
Putting in work, some basketball podcast.
Yeah, that's it. Hoop dreams. I'm all over the place these days. It's good to be busy. Yeah, but thank you for having me. It's very good to be a special guest. I like being special.
Yeah.
Mum always said I was special. Now I am.
Well, if you can't trust her.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think we will play some click pitch this week. Trevor, no, I'll explain what this game is. Oh, boy. Okay, so look, I just had a new baby this week, so you got to cut me some slack.
Congrats again.
Click pitch is a game where we each have a random word generator in front of us, and on the count of 3, 2, 1, click, we'll each get a new word, 3 words this week in this case, and we will put those words together into some sort of game design mash, and out will come delicious game patties. Fry them up, see how they taste.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, throw them out.
That's always fun, coming up with new metaphors.
Yep.
So let's jump in, I think. 3, 2, 1, click.
Click.
Ooh, okay.
Who wants to go
I
first?
got minor. M-I-N-E-R.
I was going to say. I got bug.
And I've got cheating.
Okay. Cheating bug miner. What sort of bugs mine? Ants, perhaps?
I've just instantly thought of like Hollow Knight and those guys with the little helmets in the mines.
Oh,
the
yeah.
bugs. Yep. But we don't have to go directly down the exact same path as them. But yeah, I guess ants and
termites and things.
They're all
So
they're all
I've just-
digging.
I like
Yep, go.
I was just going to say I like a revamped version of like Sim Ant with some better features, some modern kind of gameplay there.
Yep,
Could be fun.
some romance mechanics maybe. You got a romance?
Yeah, too.
Romance the queen.
Is this where the cheating comes in?
Yeah,
There's like relationship mechanics.
Maybe you have
that's where I
to
was heading.
you have to like cheat your way to the top of the the hierarchy. It's like a swindle.
Oh,
it's
so
like a
like-
swindle.
Ants are just inherently cheaters. They're not into monogamy. I mean, there are like a million of them in an anthill or whatever, and there's only one queen, so it's kind of hard to to keep that long-term relationship.
What if it was
going.
like
It's Dirty Rotten Scoundrels, but on like a larger scale.
I was thinking like the storylines from like Grand Theft Auto, but as ants, and it's instead of like trying to get the money to be rich, you're trying to take over the mine. You're trying to work your way out to the top. So you have to lie, cheat, and steal your way. Making deals with land developers and all that kind of thing. build a casino.
We've got this whole area. That's it. We've got this whole area, cordoned off. We're going to put in an ant casino.
I'm sort of picturing it like the earlier Grand Theft Auto games where like you have an initial area that you can sort of hang out in, and then it gradually opens up as the mine gets bigger.
Yeah, so are we set, like, is most of this literally set within the anthill, or is the anthill kind of one section and you go out into the wider world? What is this open world?
Yeah, I don't know enough about the infrastructure of ant mines, colonies, but yeah, it'd be good if you could maybe fraternize with the bees, and then they can take you off to their colony.
Or are they like your mounts? Like you fly the bees around.
You
have to hijack a bee.
There are flying ants.
Yeah.
I mean, I know, but a lot of them can't fly, and so they have to buddy up with a bee buddy.
There's potential.
I think I do like that idea. I think you can have some like different outfits for the bees, so you can make them look like wasps. They're still bees, but they look like wasps. So other species are afraid
just
of
kind
them.
of cinch their middle so they get like a skinnier abdomen.
Yep.
It's actually a really like bees wanting to look like wasps. It's a sort of severe case of body dysmorphia. Actually, it's kind of sad, but
it's the life. It's the life of an ant.
Yeah.
So what I was sort of looking at is in the open world part that sort of opens up. I'm thinking in the second act, because you want to start off, kind of small and contained and learning all the tricks and
the mechanics. Yeah.
All the mechanics and that sort of stuff.
Yeah. Well, is it that is the first act just in the colony then?
Yep.
Like in the anthill? And then it opens up to the outside. You reach the top and break
and you're like,
through.
whoa. Maybe you could get like banished from the ant colony and then things open up. Like a Fallout game.
Either that or I was thinking you kind of either that. Yeah, I had an idea of Fallout like that, exploring a new space. But I was thinking either that or you're on the front line of like you're a scout party looking to find a new place for a new colony.
Yeah, that's cool.
And so you've been digging underground for days and days, and then you finally break through, and it's this virgin land that your colony has no idea about. And then you're meeting the inhabitants and kind of making your way. It's like it's the new frontier, for your colony.
And you have to cheat them out of their land rights. Ooh, that's getting.
Oh yeah, you start getting political for sure. Just come in and colonize. Yeah. I mean, they're ants. That's what they do.
So I think one of the things is food is getting a little bit scarce. So that's the reason why you're sort of going out. You can head into the house to basically find a big store of sugar, and you know how you end up getting like the trail of ants going to and from.
Yeah. I was going to say, like, is this that you've broken into like a new backyard or something from your previous, or is it that this is the first time you've been near a house? Perhaps like your previous colony was in a vacant lot, and
I'm kind of getting an idea of like this almost starts out like a Fallout game that you sort of see the birth and you're sort of in the vault at the start.
Yeah.
And then when you break out, like, it has that same sort of Fallout idea of.
There are some good parallels there, for sure. And again, also being like the first of your colony. Like, I like the idea that you send messages back and forth through the tunnels back to your main colony to sort of let them know what's going on. And it's like, it's like the letters being sent back from the front line of the war or whatever, or back to England from Australia or something, or India or wherever when the English were colonizing.
Yeah, I think the life of the ant is interesting enough to make for some cool mechanics. Whether it's ant combat, pincers, exoskeletons.
Totally. I mean, you've got 4 hand slots if we're going for an RPG.
And then there's like the way they communicate with each other as well. That could be interesting.
Yeah, well, actually, there's some cool stuff you could do there with, like laying down pheromone trails. And particularly with like quests and things, right? Like you come across a strange pheromone trail and, you translate a section of it or something. You just, you know that there's something interesting in this direction. And so that's a new quest marker is like follow this ant trail, this pheromone trail, and see what's going to happen. It's just, some sort of little side quest event at the end.
Lots of pressing that button to get the sense icons to appear on the screen.
Like
the Witcher senses. It's like
detective mode kind of thing. Yeah.
Yep. I'm imagining very similar to, the Arkham Asylum sort of views that come down over the world.
Yeah, or like a pulse outwards.
I'm thinking because ants, they live underground for, the most of their lives. Going out above ground during the daylight is extremely blinding to them at first. So you have to like have almost like ant sunglasses on.
That day-night cycle, like dying light.
Well, I do like, I do definitely like the idea of like gear and stuff as well to, let you go out during the day because, there's certain people you might need to talk to or certain missions that can only be done in the sunlight or almost a little bit of, was it Dying Light?
Yeah.
Where if you go out at night time, it's going to be vastly more dangerous. This is just
the opposite.
Like that. It's the opposite, but you've got certain times of day that you can still go. It's just going to be really a lot
More
challenging.
predators.
What you got to be really careful of is they've got like a wind chime on like the on the house, and if the sun is at the right position, like the prism just focuses a strong beam of light straight down.
Yeah, look out for magnifying glasses, echidnas.
Yep.
Yeah, all that.
Yeah,
lots of predators.
Yeah, I do. I like I like the idea that they've got some sort of mythology around the burning, beam that happens at a certain time on a sunny day. Because it's like shining through. There's like an old glass Coke bottle or something that's sticking out of the ground, and it just focuses the light.
Yeah, and what you got to be really careful of, those sort of searchlight things in like Legend of Zelda, Wind Waker, and a few other games. Basically, if the wind blows on that prism, it's gonna like
it just moves it around.
Move it around quite a bit. I'm thinking that because of the size of the ants, and how whenever we see like giants in movies and that sort of stuff, how giants move a lot slower because time actually moves somewhat faster for the smaller creatures. I think that happens here in that
gives it that sense of scale.
It gives that sense of scale of you see people walking, they're walking extremely slowly.
For sure. I wonder if there's any sort of way, like, can you get onto them? Is there some mission where you have to like climb up
Shadow of the Colossus style?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
If you're a bull ant as your class that you chose at the start.
Oh god, you could choose classes.
Fire ants,
that's
bull
amazing.
ants, flying ants.
Yeah.
Fire
Well, that's
ants.
it. Can you choose even within your I guess race?
It just sort of changes.
Then you have the classes of like the worker and the flying ant and the
breeder.
Yeah. I'm imagining going out and picking up these breadcrumbs that are like this, double the size of you sort of thing. And you just...
Oh god, the fetch quests will be horrible. Although if you manage to, maybe you have to like recruit other ants to create, the conveyor line.
The bridge and all that sort of stuff. Yeah.
And so your fetch quest is just like, all right, you 100 ants, follow me. And then you pick up the breadcrumb and you hand it to the next ant, and you just watch it go all the way down the wall.
Yeah, I think.
And then your quest is.
I think there's a metagame of world building and mini games like that where you can make sure that the colony is building out. And,
you can set up like trade routes.
Yeah. Yes.
Between the different colonies, and it's just a line of ants.
Yeah, you know how in Assassin's Creed, how sometimes you can send out like parties to do missions for you.
Yeah.
That's what you can do here. That once you go discover something, then you can set up a convoy sort of thing happening between this area, and depending on how risky it is, depends on the success rate and whether there's ant-rid or anything like that.
I'm picturing like a really explosive like cover art, and it's like the ant, but he looks kind of like the guy from PUBG, and he's got like a grappling hook and maybe some body armor.
It's this fucking hardcore
I love
ant RPG ant. Well, I really like that idea of having some sort of colony management in the late game. Kind of in the same way Fallout 4 had you base building stuff.
Yeah.
It's that sort of thing. You can kind of expand your colony out in different directions. You can send out your missions to make sure you've got enough food. And you can choose maybe to go along on those missions to get some kind of, back to the first-person Fallout style shooting, and to maybe alter the probability of that mission being successful.
So it's almost like Fallout from the perspective of the ants. Those mutant ants. That's as far as I got in Fallout 2.
That's really cool. I like that idea.
I actually thought of before, but it doesn't kind of work now, but Mortal Kombat.
Yeah, I don't know if we've got any good puns in there for Fallout. Any other good survival kind of RPGs? Yeah, I don't know. Wasteland? Ant? No, that's not good. All right. 3, 2, 1, click.
That was good.
Yeah, I like that. That could be really cool. Cool setting.
I'd play it.
Fairness.
I've got managing.
bobsledding.
Ooh. Okay.
It's Cool Runnings,
So I
the
guess-
video game.
Cool Runnings, yeah.
Except
Because
you're,
we've got
you're
management, so
John
you-
Candy. You have to. You're
I was
like,
about to say you play John Candy, yeah.
yeah. Before you said bobsledding, I was like, okay, is it going to be like a god sim? But no, bobsledding.
So, yeah, are you trying to is this kind of John Candy style? You're trying to like recruit a team. I mean, I don't think you have to go to. Was it Jamaican? The Jamaican bobsledding team?
Yes, it was.
Yeah, and John Candy's character was actually disgraced because he cheated in his own bobsledding career. So fairness,
That's right.
that's a big thing of big
It's
part
a
of
redemption arc.
it. Yeah.
Yep.
All right, so are we finding the meat of this in the actual sort of narrative around building up this team as opposed to, the moment by moment I'm controlling a bobsled gameplay? Maybe it's more of, maybe you don't even control the bobsled. Maybe it's more of a, you put your team up and it is more of this management sim, and depending on your team, and the probability and their different skills, you can watch it play out, but you don't really have direct control.
Yeah, I like the idea of it having, as part of like the intro, that it shows the John Candy character cheating and getting disgraced and getting thrown out of his country off the bobsledding team. And then he finds this, down and out sort of team that you have to then sort of manage and go through, and you sort of see the parallels between what happened to you early on and then what happens to this team when they actually do it fair.
So is it like an adventure game or like a dialogue heavy?
An adventure game / management game, sort of like combining the two.
Yeah, almost like like Football Manager or whatever. I've never actually played those games, but the general idea of it, but going more down that narrative of, like you have relationships with these team members. Given that, though, is there a pool of team members that you might get like randomly assigned or that you can like draft or something? Or are you stuck with, 4 or 5 or whatever it is, and you just have to train them up in the way that you think will win?
I don't know. I think it almost needs a bit more. Like I'm thinking like in Persona, where essentially you're trying to manage, your lives as teenagers, but then there's this supernatural element where you're going into a fantasy world to change their like attitudes or their other selves, like their other dimension selves, and it has a reflection in the real world. So I wonder if, as like you're managing your John Candy, there's some, whether it's supernatural or not, there's a way that you have to like, I don't know, reach out to each individual person on your team and have their own little kind of loyalty quest or something like that.
Yeah. Some way that it's
to get the good ending.
Like whether it's through the training or through just like little vignettes with each character.
Okay, I'm so seeing Undertale right now. Just the Undertale. You know how you had those little mini games that you had to do? So I'm so seeing that sort of thing.
Yeah.
As almost like a
reaction.
A boss
thing,
fight.
Yeah.
Sort of thing. And if you do bad at that, then, you lose their respect sort of thing, and you turn them more towards cheating.
I guess it depends how much down the management track we want to go, where, the decisions you make really affect the outcome of the actual events that they're competing in, because obviously that gets trickier to kind of then weave the narrative through that. I wonder if it's almost a bit of, this is going a little bit different, but almost a bit of like FTL, like a roguelike, where you've got these different events at different times. You start off with, a random selection of dodgy bobsledders who may or may not have done it before. And maybe they might even feel different archetypes. Like maybe there is someone who's actually quite experienced, but they've been disgraced in some way. Or there's the person, the complete green newbie, or there's the person who's sort of in the middle of their career but not really feeling it anymore, and they're a bit of a drunk. Or, I don't know, like different aspects to each character that then, as you, like in the FTL sort of thing, maybe you've got a series of steps leading up to each event, and that could be like a little mini game, like a training thing, or it could be just a conversation tree where you've got different options and the outcomes, but the outcomes will change the stats of your players, both like how good they are at bobsledding and what they are feeling about the team and you, and eventually you get to, your goal is to get to the Olympics, and maybe you don't make it, like maybe the team falls apart because like in a roguelike, you're not always going to have a successful run. But perhaps you unlock, different types of characters or different options within the conversation trees or something.
Yeah. I like a 4-year cycle of the Olympic Games, the Winter Olympic Games every 4 years, maybe.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So maybe that's you've started, each game starts like just after the end of the last Winter Olympics. And you've got those 4 years to, and you've got events in between that. You've got like local events or smaller events that aren't the Olympics that you can, and that's sort of your benchmark maybe each year or something. You've got 1 or 2 major events, and you could just fail it. Like you could just fail that event, and you're going to have a huge setback, and that means you might not even make it to the Olympics unless you kind of, do some different tactics to pull it off. And maybe there is the option to cheat.
Ooh.
Like maybe that could be an interesting...
Yeah.
Well, and just because if you are playing this character who's cheated in the past, it's sort of, do you do that again? Like if it's looking like your chances of getting into the Olympics aren't high, do you try to bribe someone? Do you you can have sort of underhanded techniques as well.
Yeah, I think in the movie, it's been a while since I've seen it, but I think they weighted the bobsled or something. That was the cheating that John Candy did.
Yeah. So you could just those sorts of things could be an option.
I don't know why, but I keep on getting this vision of like these secret missions that you can go on that you're sort of like trying to infiltrate something to like do some sort of spy work. But it just so happens that in these missions, there happens to also be like a bobsled tube that you can sort of travel from one area to another really quickly as like an escape sort of thing.
So that's just like, that could be one of the little mini game vignettes or something that shows up.
Yeah. It's like applying your specific sport talent to the real world.
Yeah. The CIA approaches you and, there are some files at the end of a very long icy tube that they need.
But I'm thinking that also that when you do find these things, there's another long icy tube that you can get into, and there's a bobsled like device waiting for you as a getaway vehicle.
As a getaway, back up the tube, but you've got a rocket on now.
Oh god!
All right, I think
we've taken that as far as it can go.
Yeah.
Yep. 3, 2, 1, click.
Away.
Mortar.
Yes, science.
What?
Science.
It's just science. Okay.
It's a Breaking
doing
Bad.
The Breaking Bad thing.
Oh.
So I've got away, mortar.
Jono, is yours way like W-E-I-G-H?
No, like A-W-A-Y.
Like
away. Going away, like home and away.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Mortar.
Okay.
Since we've got science, mortar leads me towards like a mortar and pestle, like grinding up spices or ingredients.
Well, I was sort of taking it to more of a I kind of heard home and away, and I immediately thought of like it's the end of like World War II or something like that, and I forget what the bay that they've Summer Bay.
Yeah.
Summer Bay's just been mortared by like the Japanese or something like that.
Well, or
yeah,
it's the war between home and away and neighbours.
Erinsborough has called out war, all out war on
all that war on Summer Bay.
On Summer Bay, even though they're nowhere near each other. And
that's why they're using mortars.
Erinsborough has set up a mortar thing, and now Summer Bay are going at at
Ramsey Street
or
yeah.
Erinsborough with science.
Yeah, like chemical warfare. Send in Tony.
He's a marvel of science. Yeah. I think if we take away the home and away element and just start again.
Yes, I think we should.
That's probably wise.
We could look at. I don't know.
It's
mortar
a good visual.
Yeah, it is. But the mortar and pestle thing interests me. I think it could almost be like some kind of chemical drug, like lab type thing.
Yeah.
And then away is like you're I don't know, shipping it away.
I'm feeling like it's maybe in VR, just because mixing and grabbing different ingredients and grinding them up would feel really good in that space.
Could be like Surgeon Simulator, but you're making chemicals and drugs.
Yeah, or maybe you're playing like a what would you call it? Like a medieval doctor.
Oh, okay.
And so all of your cures are just like natural seeds and plants, and this sort of
like
thing.
A bat's wing and a goat's eye.
Yeah, and I don't know if you go like magic or if you just go with it. It's like you're having to like match up what do they call them, the different body vapors or whatever.
What?
There was a word for it. Like one was like bile, blood, something else, and that was how they figured out how to fix things.
Yeah, they've talked about it on Sawbones quite a lot. I'm trying to think.
Yeah, the humours.
Yes.
There you go. So you have to like balance the humours. Here you go: blood, yellow bile, black bile, and phlegm. Oh my god!
So we're talking about like a herbal apothecary. What is it? Apothecary?
Yeah.
I don't know how to pronounce it.
Apothecary.
Yeah, that's it.
I think, yeah. So maybe you don't go full on like humorism, but it's along those lines of this isn't modern medicine, but you're trying to solve. Patients come in and you have to do something to diagnose them, and maybe you've got like a little reference manual or something, and it's all very simple things. It's like, you put a leech on them and then squeeze the leech out and see what color the blood is. If it's black, then you're gonna have to apply, this, and so that means look on my shelf of all these like, jars and vials of different things. It's like, all right, I need to measure this out and put this in, and there's going to be a time pressure, of course, depending on how sick this person is.
Did you guys watch the Castlevania series on Netflix?
I've only seen a couple of episodes.
Yeah. Anyway, so there's a character that she's this type of doctor, basically, but all the religious leaders think it's witchcraft, essentially, that she's making all these medicines and curing people. So they like basically destroy her lab or her whatever you call it. So yeah, you can have like a time limit where you have to do all this stuff and maybe hide everything away before you're discovered or something like that. Yeah,
or even just like an overarching narrative of you're an enemy of the state. Basically, you're against the state religion, and so you need to move around. Maybe then you have some missions where you don't have all your ingredients because you've had to pack up your whole lab and you're just working out of your suitcase. Yeah, you might have to scavenge some of them from the forest even. There could be that Subnautica level of like exploration where you got to like go and find all the materials, like that kind of survival element. That's changing it a bit more. Yeah, that's an interesting idea though, because then you could do things like kind of like in The Witcher where a big part of that is mixing up potions and things. To use in combat, like if you're going to go into combat, you want to prepare and you want to make sure you've got enough of the potions and stuff. And so it could be a bit of that. There's a bit of combat. There's a bit of scavenging and crafting, and then also you can maybe you go, but you go in town to town, and when you go into a town, then you you use your services, you give your services as a doctor to these people, and that's how you make your money.
Yes. And like Breath of the Wild, a big part of that was making random potions and mixing things together to see what comes out. So it could be a bit of experimentation and trying to improve recipes.
Yeah. And then I like the idea of filling up your recipe book as well. Like you find new recipes for new curatives and different salves and potions.
Yeah, it kind of happened in Skyrim as well, like that you could find like a whole heap of different ingredients out there, and each ingredient would have like 4 different properties that it could basically have, and you mix them in the right way, and you would maybe get a more powerful healing potion or a more powerful, spider's poison or something like that.
You could bring, it depends how far you want to go, you could bring alchemy and stuff into it as well.
Yep.
Ooh, yeah.
Turn lead into gold.
Well, because I was just thinking about the combat, because I love the idea of this really focusing around the crafting and the fact that you are, a doctor of sorts, a healer. But I think the combat comes around, I need the gallbladder of a badger, a honey badger, just to go down that path. And so you need to, you're not a fighter, but you've got some weapons. Maybe you can choose like ranged weapons, or you've got a couple of daggers or something but then again, you're a scientist. And so the way that you defeat them is you prepare, you put poison on your blade, because you've got the recipe for a poison that will kill in 2 minutes after it gets into the bloodstream. And so as long as you hit them with that and then don't die for 2 minutes, you're going to get them. And so it's a bit more strategic in that way than just brute forcing your way and killing 30 badgers.
2 minutes is a long time in a video game.
Only 5 of which drop their gallbladder for some reason.
What I'm sort of thinking about is, can you have some sort of, I know it probably didn't exist in this time, but Hippocratic oath that it's all about do no harm to humans.
Yeah.
So
are there monsters?
Monsters and badgers and all that sort of stuff, they're fair game, but any human combatants, I'm picturing a do no harm sort of thing would be good. Now, it could be a Batman style do no harm that, just because someone else is going to hurt this person doesn't mean that you got to stop them.
Well, Hippocrates lived nearly 2,500 years ago, so
it's possible.
I think we can safely say there's probably some sort of Hippocratic oath if we want to set it.
I was going to say, I like the idea of like a vampire or someone coming to you and you being like, does it fall under the oath or not? Because they're technically not human, but they're reaching out to me with human-like compassion.
Well, and certainly if we go down this sort of fantasy route with monsters and creatures and stuff, which I like, I wonder if this oath is literally binding. Like, if you break it, you will have something bad happen to you, or you'll be cursed, or you'll die, or whatever.
Well, what I think it is,
the stakes are high. It's not just your own kind of morals.
What I think it is actually a hippogriffin oath.
So hippogriffic oath.
So basically, if you go against it, the hippogriffin comes down and basically kills you.
Or you turn into one. Nice. Yeah. And then you have to reverse the effects. So you slowly turn into a monster.
It's kind of like a vampiric curse, but if you you can reverse it with garlic and silver or whatever.
Nightshade.
That's really cool. Yeah, I feel like you could spend a lot of time in a game like that,
especially in VR.
Learning all the different recipes and exploring that world.
Yep. Oh cool. Yeah, I'm all down for that. 3, 2, 1, click.
Yeah. Spattering.
Rich.
Supplying.
So I thought of, when I saw spattering, I thought of Dexter.
Yeah.
And like blood spatter analysis.
Okay. It's a good direction.
But I don't know if...
Okay, so where I'm sort of going with that then is you've caught this rich guy supplying drugs to like these high school teens. And so you're like a young Dexter who's now trying to plan the murder of this guy who's killing.
I love that.
Like the teens at the local high school.
It's like Hitman, but instead of the hitman, you're a serial killer with a conscience.
Yeah, and you're a teenager and you're killing high school kids.
No, you're not killing.
You said that it was just it's just dealing to high school kids.
Yeah, so the rich guy is dealing to the high school kids, and you're now trying to take out the kingpin who's been killing all your friends, and that's what's turned you psychopathic.
Yeah. I do like the idea of you being a teenager.
Yep,
that's cool. Okay, so you're a teenage sociopath, and the first kill is this like low level dealer because you realize that he's hurting your friends, and you hunt him down, you kill him, and this gives you the idea of that actually felt really good. It's getting dark.
Take it out of the trash.
I'm not sure I want to jump in the head of a sociopathic serial killer, but
I mean, most video games we're playing serial killers.
It's true. It's
Nathan
true.
Drake.
It's funny that on this show we actually tend away from a lot of the more violent interactions within games often, but we can head down this path. So yeah, you mentioned Hitman. This is very much the like meticulously plan out your kill.
I like the idea of it being more like less is more, where each kill is a big build up, and you have to do a whole lot of research and like planning, almost in like that LA noir kind of setup where you got all these different cases and you have to gather evidence, and then it's at the end that it all culminates with the interrogation. But in this, it's like picking the right spot to approach them, and there can, like Hitman, there can be different ways to do it. But I think if you kind of set a plan and try and carry it out, that's kind of the way that it needs to go.
Yeah, I think a bit less improvisational than Hitman. Like obviously in Hitman you can just, once you know all the things that are happening in the level, you can really make a plan. But I feel like this is a bit more researching over sort of multiple days, getting the routes that they take, the people that they talk to, the people they know, finding your kill room, deciding where that is. And I like the idea of, in that Dexter sense, it's sort of ritualistic.
Yeah.
In that you want this person to know why you're killing them.
Yep.
Yeah.
But I think it would be good to not actually have control over the character when he does the killing. I think that's a little bit over the top. I think it's more
probably
about,
fair.
It's more about, okay, you've made the prey, now you don't get to actually. You've caught the prey, you've interrogated, and now like it's going to sort of
we can
fade
be
away.
a bit more tasteful about that. It can be one of those, camera pans and you see the blood spatter. That's where the spatter comes in.
Yeah.
I think you need to be able to also prove that they're guilty as well. So there's that sense of investigation and maybe even drawing a confession out of them.
Yeah, and that's just your own sort of ethical side of things.
And you could just do it like without doing that. Like you don't have to get them to confess, but maybe there's like a negative effect on you over time where you struggle a bit more with your actions if you aren't like 110% positive that you did the right thing. And maybe there's just degrees of the goodness of your ending, like good ending, medium ending, bad ending.
Well, and I like that idea of it getting as you go along each victim, it's a bit grayer.
Yeah.
So I think very early on, you have direct evidence of this person, specifically targeting young teens with dangerous drugs that are cut with, fucking whatever.
Toad's blood.
I don't know. And so, it doesn't take much for you to realize, this person needs to die. But yeah, as you go through the other kind of missions, as it were, you might have multiple suspects and you really have to get it right, or the circumstances around a particular event are really grey, and so you have to kind of suss that out and decide, did this person actually do something wrong? You know, or things like, it really looks like at face value that this person is a murderer or whatever, but as you talk to them, you realize, the intent behind it means, they're actually, like, even though they ended up doing this horrible thing, it was this huge accident and sort of screw up, and that they don't actually deserve to die. And so I like that idea of even literally that you might find this out in your kill room as you get the confession from them, and you have to then decide, oh shit, do I go ahead and kill this person?
Or they might say, it wasn't me, or this person made me do it. Yeah.
Yeah, and depending on the other evidence you've gathered, that may or may not be plausible to you.
Yep. Maybe you can have almost like an Orwell sort of thing where you can connect up the evidence that you've got with like testimony, and then if this contradicts what you've already got, then it
raises a red flag.
Raises a red flag, and then you may get some more information about who is actually to blame. But then you're left with the whole thing of, this guy may now, he's seen your face, he may now actually tell someone else.
Yeah, for sure. And so, I like that idea of it being, having, I think it's mostly narrative, but there's some systems-based stuff, like in Orwell, depending on what evidence you find. Either you get some sort of branching stuff, or, like if you get the wrong person and then find out that info and let them go, all right, now, a little meter in the background goes up of your suspicion is higher to certain people.
Yeah, Heavy Rain did that really well, where you had the CIA agent with his files, and you had to connect dots and you had to have found the right evidence at the crime scenes to actually get specific scenes or a specific ending. And if you didn't have that evidence, or if you didn't choose that right dialogue option to get that information, then it just closes off a bunch of branching paths.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, Detroit Become Human does that a lot too.
Love those styles.
Particularly with one of the characters. But, I like that it's sort of... And look, it even makes sense to head down that sort of route almost. Like you mentioned L.A. Noire, which has some similarities to the Quantic Dream games in some ways. But just, it's sort of slower paced, and each case is kind of its own thing, and you're building up that evidence, and it's sort of, it would have different branches and different potential endings that then, whether just numerically or narratively, affect the later cases.
Sounds like a lot for a teenager to pull off. might need to be.
He's precocious.
Okay. The boy wonder.
Precocious sociopath.
Precociopath. All right, 3, 2, 1, 3.
Oh, God. Cave.
No, I'm not going to use clitoris. Thank you, random word generator. It's not good on that route.
That would be hard to ignore. I had right, as in alt-right, or left and right.
As in what, sorry?
Right. Right hand.
As in, okay. And I have zenith.
Zenith.
As in, like,
peak,
I guess?
Like, apex, yeah. Yeah, so when I had right, I immediately just thought of, like, right wing, but then with pairing it up with zenith, it could just be that someone is very virtuous, they're right,
Well, I wonder if we take this into an astronomical direction as well.
Yeah.
Something to do with
like
the
that.
planets, or,
sci-fi.
Or even an astrological direction, if we want to give that any sort of credence. But, there's something to do around the positioning and the alignment of the planets.
Yeah, I'm getting...
Mars reaches its zenith around the sun.
Yeah, I'm picturing that, like, there's this mountain on this particular island in which, a man walked up many years ago and sort of stopped in a cave at the very top and sort of positioned himself as like this sort of guy to be revered.
Like a guru.
Yeah. So I'm thinking that, he talks of the Mars zenith, and everyone thinks that he's right, except for you. And that's...
Okay.
What was your word?
Some sort of...
Cave.
Yeah, okay.
So...
Is he some sort of prophet then? Like, is he predicting things, or...
I think he's predicting things, and you've sort of... I like the idea of, maybe going against that. Your character's going against, like, the typical sort of views of your society.
So is this like a more primitive sort of civilization where this guy has sort of taken a leadership role? It's a little bit culty, and you're kind of you're breaking out of that. You're the rebellious one.
Yeah. I don't think you have to say it's any particular race of people or anything like that. It can just be like a massive island and in a sea.
Well, maybe this is one of those things where it's like the distant future after the downfall of our civilization, and things have reverted back to kind of primitive forms and isolated pockets of people.
Yep.
And so this is this isolated...
So maybe in the cave there's some
village.
Evidence of this.
Yeah, well, that could be something you find out as the game goes along. But starting off, it's just, okay, you explore this sort of small town, and everybody talks about the cave lord.
It sounds like Horizon Zero Dawn without the dinosaur robots and stuff. Maybe. Yeah,
well, that sort of thing of. Yeah, in a way, it's certainly in how the kind of the tribes and things are structured there. But I think this is very much. I keep thinking, is it The Giver? Is that the one? There's like a book and a movie. Anyway, it's more that it's very much they're very isolated. Like no one leaves and no one comes into this village, and for generations, it's just been, these 500 people or whatever. Obviously, the population, goes up and down, but it just means that they have their very specific beliefs about how the world works and what is on the outside, and that it's dangerous. Perhaps this guy, or if it's been generations, like this bloodline of people, or maybe each cave lord like finds the next cave lord and trains them up. And maybe so then your role as the character is you're sort of unraveling this, and you're the skeptic.
Yep.
What's the gameplay?
Maybe you're the skeptic who's also been selected to be the next cave lord.
Yes, I feel like that would be part of it. Either that, or the person, like you're good friends with the person who's selected to be the next cave lord, and you're sort of using their access to figure this out.
Yeah. So gameplay, I'm thinking third-person action adventure with
a bit of an adventure game bit. Yeah.
Being able to talk to people and sort of you can do some fetch quests and that sort of stuff throughout. But you've also got some actiony sort of things that actually have to happen. Almost like a Legend of Zelda sort of feel.
Mm. Yeah, well, I think it's obviously pretty heavily narrative driven.
Yep.
There's a lot of just exploring the world to get a sense of the story and of this town and their beliefs and learning who this cave lord is. And then there could be some. I guess it depends on how you do the actiony stuff.
I'm kind of picturing that the cave lord is almost like, say, the Wizard of Oz, that he's almost got like this otherworldly sort of power that everyone sort of sees, but it's actually just technology that is...
I think he's definitely hoarding technology or hoarding knowledge of, the before times.
Yeah, I'm
to
just
take advantage of these people.
I'm just imagining like this huge head that gets projected above the mountain sort of thing.
Oh yeah, full on Wizard of Oz kind of style. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I kind of like the narrative opportunities there.
Yeah. Same. any other particular like gameplay elements that you think need to come in?
Look, I think that pretty much that sort of third-person action adventure-y kind of deal would work there. I'm not sure there's much that you'd obviously start finding things out, and you start maybe getting to use. You get to the later game and you find the Cave Lord's stash of old times technology.
Kind of feels a bit like a Fable game, if you remember.
Yeah, actually, I can see that.
Interesting.
Yeah. I love the
just was thinking about the way that it can all sort of work, and that just came to mind.
I was trying to think of like a good twist, and it reminded me of in Fallout New Vegas. Spoilers for a game that came out 8 years ago, when there's obviously the big house. Mr. House is the big kind of central villain, and you find out that he's kind of an AI that's being operated by a very, very, very old man that's kind of on life support and just kind of hanging on to run this empire. Mm-hmm. So it could be that through all this technology, he's appearing to be this kind of all-powerful human, but he's actually just kind of barely hanging on, and you have to decide what to do.
I kind of like the idea that maybe he broke his legs and like it was never able to actually come down, but found this technology up the top, and is just sort of now sort of able to control the people from up there, but he can't actually get down off the mountain.
Well, and I guess it just depends on how has this been going for many generations, or is this sort of just this one guy over 60 years or something, which is enough. Really, it's enough for this to happen.
Yeah, and he keeps on like bringing up boys who have just sort of turned 18 to come help him out. Basically, bring him food and that sort of stuff. But obviously, you're like the latest of a line of these helpers.
I wonder if he's actually found some life extension technology.
Yeah,
I was thinking that maybe in this world the life expectancy is only like 30 or 40 years. And because he's been around for maybe 60 years or so, people are like, oh, he lives forever. Like there's this kind of mythos or this kind of, urban legend
given
about
that
him.
He was sort of the guy was 20 when he went up there, they're not seeing that. They'd never think that this guy is the same guy that was up there. So they think of him as a god.
Yeah, well, particularly if he managed to start projecting himself in different ways.
Yeah.
Well, and then maybe the story is actually that now he knows he's getting close to dying, and so he is looking for his first successor to basically carry on this charade of the god, the Cave Lord. And that's presumably your character.
Cool.
Yeah, I guess you'd have to decide whether you do it or kind of teach everyone that they've been following some kind of ghost for the last
I think that would be your big that would be your big choice somewhere in the sort of third act.
Definitely.
Do you reveal all, or do you take your place as the almighty Cave Lord? All right, let's do one quick one more and see how it goes.
Yep. 3, 2, 1, click.
Okay. Cartoon.
Fear. I had fear.
Yep. Star.
Fear. The fear star. Well, this gives us. I mean, that's wide open.
Yep.
I like the idea, obviously, of a cartoonish world.
Yeah, I think a cartoonish world, almost like a Day of the Tentacle sort of view, that sort of cartoony view. Star sort of says to me, otherworldly.
Okay. Yeah.
And then fear, well, that's like fear of that the protagonist has to an antagonist.
Mm. Wow.
Okay, still very broad.
Yes.
Let's try to narrow it down. So are we talking, you mentioned Day of the Tentacle. Are we talking adventure game?
Point and click.
Or do we try to find some other sort of mechanics here.
Could be a platformer where fear
Yeah.
is a mechanic, much like, I guess, anxiety and stuff was a big part of Celeste.
Mhm.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, that could be really interesting to come up with some ideas around that.
Yeah, I really, really like that. I'm just picturing almost sort of like the what's it called? Eternal Darkness sort of fear mechanics, but in a platformer sort of thing that as you get close to like these near death sort of scenarios, like your sanity gradually starts breaking a what bit.
Yeah, but I'm trying to think of how you kind of manifest that fear.
Yeah.
But what you mentioned there, it made me think, particularly with a platformer, you could really manipulate things like the distance between platforms. And I don't know whether that changes based on, and I don't know. Again, I don't know if this is a gameplay mechanic or just a narrative thing, but. You know, the areas that are blocked off because this jump looks huge. It looks there's no way you can make this jump. But as you kind of, I don't know, go through and stop being so afraid and you come back and it's just like, oh, I don't know what I was afraid of. Like, it's actually just a completely doable jump. And it's like physically changed on the screen.
I was thinking like you could have a kind of a meter and it's adrenaline and you have to make your jumps before it reaches too high and it becomes fear. And then the fear starts to like make the screen fade into like black and becomes really hard to kind of navigate the platforms. So that way it's kind of, it's kind of the enemy as well as a gameplay mechanic. And it's a time thing as well. Cause I remember like in Darkest Dungeons, if you played that where, like the longer you're down in the dungeons, the more fear and anxiety and those things the characters build up, and that starts to negatively impact their traits. So that could be a cool way to do it as a platformer.
I do like the idea of a platformer where the protagonist is afraid of heights.
You're making big
and
jumps.
how you could...
I'm picturing like Super Meat Boy, like Celeste kind of crazy.
Yeah, Twitch platformer with fear mechanics that if you kill your character, then the character's now going to be afraid of the screen that they're on and want to take it more safer.
I like, okay. Yeah, there are a couple of things there. So the fear kind of building up and changing things. Again, I like that idea then of things physically changing in the space, reacting to that. So if you're too afraid when you try to make a jump, maybe the platform that you're heading for is literally smaller. Like it's always a doable jump, but you have to have a more precise jump. And so it
gets harder the more that you fail.
Sort of, because I don't think just failing on that screen is the only way that that'll happen. It's more as you know, if they're afraid of heights, right? And there's a whole section where there are a bunch of high jumps that need to be made, or jumps while you're up high. It then allows you to, all right, well, if you're super good at this game, you just go and do it. Because, yes, they're going to be really difficult, but you're amazing at this game, and that's sort of you pushing through the fear.
It's almost like you have your own fear as the player that manifests on the screen. Well,
that's it. Yeah, I feel like that's actually a kind of a good connection there between the player and the character. And then for everyone else, perhaps there are ways to, whether you just take it more slowly or, you know, you have ways to counter that fear.
I like that.
In some way.
It's almost like, like a lesson in dealing with anxiety and fear and that kind of thing. And it could be interesting if like the art style changes as well based on, I guess, the level of fear, where things that are fairly just ordinary become suddenly kind of sinister.
Yeah, I like that. And that actually could be a good mechanic that it sort of gives you an idea of what this character is going to be afraid of. Like, as you approach them, they sort of shift a bit and become, more sinister looking, and the colours change. And that's interesting.
I like the idea.
So it starts out all cartoony, but the more that you sort of the more that you sort of die on a screen, it'll get grittier and grittier and grittier. Yeah. And, you know, it's sort of almost like the spikes are getting extra blood on them and all this sort of stuff. And you just sort of
yeah. And the statues become like, you know, more ominous, and the sky that's like lightning in the distance, and
Yep.
Totally.
And then the better that you're doing on a level, the more that the adrenaline sort of
the sun shining and there's butterflies and rainbows.
Yeah, I'm picturing that if you die too much on a screen, then, you know, it's turning into like a hellscape sort of thing. That maybe there's something else that, like, a personification of your fear, like, appears on the screen, kind of like in if you remember Bubble when you hadn't killed all the enemies on the screen quick enough, then you get like this ghost that could not be killed that would appear on the screen. Kind of like that.
Okay, so I think we'd have to, just from a purely practical point of view, I think these two mechanics would have to be two different things. So I really do like that idea of a single screen that you keep failing on getting fucking creepier and more sinister and whatever, because I just love I love the idea of someone who's just really having trouble on this one jump or whatever, or this one maneuver, and they have to, you know, they go off and do something else to try a different level for a while, and they come back and they just come on this screen, it's just like lightning, ghosts, fucking creepy shit. But I think making that harder then, like you said, like the more you fail, the harder it gets. I think that almost has to be a separate mechanic then.
Yeah.
That's like hard mode.
Well, or just of, like, yes, that level of like the art style changing is a reflection on how difficult you found this level or whatever, but the actual whole fear mechanic then is a little bit different of, you know, I'm kind of picturing it almost, if you like take too many high, like, jumps where the ground is like X far below you or whatever in short succession, then your fear is rising up. And each of those jumps is getting harder because the platforms are getting smaller or something. But if you sit and wait between jumps, like, it slowly comes back down and your heart rate drops. Like, it could be linked to your heart rate or something, you know, something like that.
It could be another direction you go in, and I'm thinking like Rogue Legacy, where you die and then it's like your descendant, and then they've got like a different fear, different phobia. So what if it's heights? It might be.
Oh yeah,
it might change the way that the gameplay works versus, I don't know, like water levels. I don't know, like enemies
or water, or
having to cool, like, if there's like a swinging mechanic, or if there's a double jump, maybe they hate to do a double jump.
I'm picturing now that
fear of double jump.
One that's going to have like arachnophobia or something like that, and there's like spiders on the screen, and they just instantly goes into the hellscape.
Yeah, that's cool. I do really like that visual representation, the idea of that, the level sort of changing around you. And yeah, whether you bring in that difficulty mechanic or not, I don't know, but that representation feels good, that connection there between the gameplay and the
I think the difficulty thing works as long as there's a way to counteract it, whether it's like standing still for like 20 seconds or something like that.
Yeah, and that's an interesting...
Or even 3 or 4 seconds, because 20 seconds in a video game is eternity.
You'd have to do so. Or maybe it's like a little mini game where you have to like focus your breathing.
But I mean, even
to really just like psych yourself up.
Even like, standing still in those types of games where you're failing time and time again, you want to just like rush through it. But to actually beat it, you have to actually kind of calm yourself down and be like, okay, I need to be patient and careful and like get through it. And that's actually, again, like where the game gets harder as you fail more, you relate to the fear of the character. You can relate to them taking the time to just calm down a bit. I think that would be a cool kind of like
I'm kind of seeing a hold down the left trigger to breathe in, let it go to breathe out, and you can sort of do it at a slow sort of pace, you know, because it's got the analog stick, the analog feel to the trigger, then you can actually pull it all the way in and all the way out.
even use one of those visuals that they use to calm people with, like filling the balloon or whatever. Or, expanding to, one circle expanding inside the other. Yeah, that's interesting to have that affect then how afraid they are in like the next section they come across that they know is that their character has a problem with. That's cool.
Yeah, I'm imagining like the speedrunning community like getting certain strats of getting through it, and it's always sunny in their sort of strats, but the normal person's playthrough is continual like hellscapes all the way through.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I feel like it would almost be the opposite, particularly if you go with that difficulty thing, because the speedrunners are going to be so good at it that they just are in a constant state of fear throughout the game, but they're good enough that they just get through it anyway.
Yeah.
Whereas your regular player kind of has to slow down a bit and smell the roses.
Yeah. Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, that's cool.
That's really cool.
All right, well, I think we will finish it up there for this week of Bitstorm. If you want to find us online, you can go to podchaser.com/Bitstorm. All of our links and socials and whatever are all on there. And we are also part of the 8-Bit Collective, and this is a group of like-minded podcasters, such as our friend here, Jono Pech, all doing their own podcast, but kind of helping each other out and being friends.
You can go now, John.
Yeah. Should we talk about Comedy Rewind a bit?
Certainly.
Yeah, certainly.
So
tell us about Comedy Rewind.
Yeah, so these two gentlemen here with me right now were kind enough to come on as co-hosts or guests for an episode, which is looking at Clerks. We just did this. It's a rewatch comedy podcast, so we're looking at the great movies of the 90s, talking about whether they hold up, what we love about them, some things that kind of make them products of their time and maybe would be different if they were made today. And Clerks certainly has a lot of those, I think we can agree. And we really had a good time talking about this movie that I think means a lot to you guys, especially, would you say?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. Big part of our kind of late teenagehood.
Yes.
And continues to be, an influence.
Yeah. And I'm guessing like even being fans of Kevin Smith and his podcasting style is probably a bit of an influence on this show with the amount of kind of improvising that him and Scott Mosher do.
Oh, certainly. Yeah. And look, I think Kevin Smith was probably the first podcast I ever listened to.
Was for me.
So, yeah, that's definitely a huge influence on Bitstorm as well.
That's cool. Yeah, so if you want to...
It was a lot of fun.
If you want to hear that podcast, it's up Comedy Rewind. It's on iTunes, Podchaser, and all the good podcast services. So check it out. And it is releasing every fortnight with a different comedy with different guests or co-hosts from around the 8-Bit Collective and the rest of the internet as well. So look forward to that. It's definitely...
I look forward to what you're doing next because I didn't quite hear it, even though I probably listened to the episode already and therefore would know what's coming next.
Well, so we've done Happy Gilmore, Dumb and Dumber, Clerks with you guys, and up next is American Pie.
Ooh.
Which is very
nice.
Very much a product of 1999, celebrating its 20th anniversary this year.
Wow.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's awesome. And you can catch me on Twitter and follow all my shows and stuff. I'm at Jono himself, and the links are always there.
Yes, and I believe that you're going to be at PAX.
I am indeed. I've got my credentials already, so I'm excited about the possibilities. I've got another podcast putting in work, so I'm trying to already line up some interviews with whether it's devs or voice actors or whoever might be attending the conference, so that'll be a fun time as well.
Fun. And how's the 8-Bit Patreon going with that party that we want to go to?
I mean, we pushed it just to get Comedy Rewind made, so I think we might have to reevaluate the stretch goals and see if it's probably going to have to be PAX next year if we are going to hit that tier.
We'll still be around.
We'll hold our own party. So. We just won't be inviting everybody.
Slightly lower budget.
Yeah, pay for your own drinks. Kind of party.
So we are also part of the Australasian Gaming Podcast Network. There are another group of like-minded individuals that sort of get together, help promote each other's podcasts, and just generally want to see more gaming podcasts out there. So if you can check out at AGP Network on Twitter or the Australasian Gaming Podcast Network on Facebook. And finally, we'd like to thank Kuradust for the song Mount Defiance off of the album Containment Failure.
That's it. So thank you again for joining us this week on Bitstorm. I am Ben Slinger.
I'm Trevor Scott.
I'm Jono Pech.
And that's I can't remember any of the games we did.